Oh, which one? Oh, he's so good. He's so good. Thank you.
This conference will now be recorded.
Good evening. I would like to call to order the Tuesday, June 17th meeting of the Monmouth
This
City
conference will
Council.
now be recorded.
Oh, yes. I'll get her. Good evening. I would like to call to order the Tuesday, June 17th and ask our acting city clerk to do the orders for the roll call, please.
Here.
And ask our acting city
Present.
orders for the roll call, please.
Here.
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 Present. Present.
Present. And
Here.
I will ask Councilor Ridgway to use the flags.
Here. Present.
Present. Our first item then is our consent calendar, which was the minutes from our last meeting of June 3rd. Those were included in your packet. Are there any additions, corrections, or a motion to approve would be wonderful.
Move approval. Second, Lopez.
Thank you, Councilor Belts for the motion and Councilor Lopez for the second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
And any opposed?
Second, Lopez.
All right, thank you very much. That brings us to public comments, and I don't believe we have any here in the room. Has anyone submitted anything? Okay, nothing submitted. Thank you, Pam. And that brings us to a presentation this evening, and I see some fabulous members of our Library Advisory Board here. So we'll invite the chair, Carol Hart, up to let us know what's going on.
Okay, I have a gives you some information that I won't specifically go over. Okay. So in the last year, since last summer, the board, okay, there was a new ethics law seminar that the state instituted. The board all did that webinar. We updated the city ordinance for the library over the past year. You guys know that because you had to approve it. We sadly lost a board member. I think he had already decided to step back, but Bill Horner died, and we miss him. he was a definite presence on the board. We spent a fair amount of our meeting time updating library policies like the bulletin board. You know, how's it used? How long can things stay up there? What kinds of things can get posted and so forth. Confidentiality and privacy policy. Okay, with public library, you've got to be careful. You know who gets what information, and basically, without a warrant, almost nobody does. So, um, the computer use and printing policy was updated with a new name, the public computer Wi-Fi and printing policy. And you know, we have the printing capability for people who are using the computers in the library, and they also can use the printers in the library from their laptops via the Wi-Fi. And so, you know, it all kind of works as a system. We moved from 11 meetings a year to 6. We meet in the odd months. We're still meeting at 7 a.m., which some people don't really care for, but you know, it is what it is. We have maintained access via Zoom. So, you know, we started doing it, you know, obviously during COVID, and we've kept that possibility. And we have 2 members who regularly come in by Zoom for various reasons. A couple of things. The Library of Things. How many of you know about the Library of Things? Okay, good. Some of you do. It has expanded, and it's being expanded all the time. Some of the most popular things that are checked out are the portable CD players, the travel DVD players, the launch pads, and Blu-ray players. We just added a couple of telescopes. Okay, so summertime, ideal time to check out a telescope, and a couple of games for little ones. Codapillar is a coding game for ages 3 to 6. Computer coding game, and the Code and Go mouse for ages 4 and up. We also have in the Library of Things an external DVD drive, a boombox, webcam, pickleball equipment. If you're interested in trying it out without having to buy your own equipment. And of course, we still have the passes for Gilbert House and other attractions that families can check out. Okay, the library collaborated with the Arts and Culture Commission to hold the Tiny Art Show. In I think that was January. And we got the meeting room sound system fixed. Okay. And then the garden club donated new plants and dirt and work and volunteer time. And the Veterans Club at WU donated time and muscle to remove and clear and plant. And so there's the flower bed, I guess you might say, that's closest to the front door, is free of weeds and has new plantings, so it looks nicer. Let's see. Oh, the CCRLS started a program to give each of its members 5 hotspots to check out to members, and they're going to do a 6-month evaluation of it, which isn't up yet. And so I think probably next month there'll be a little bit more information from them on that. I've got one more thing, but I want to ask if you have questions first.
Annie, go ahead.
Okay. Well, the one more thing is tomorrow. The summer reading program is kicking off, and they're having a carnival at the library from 11 to 1. So, summer reading program. When our kids were little, they just loved being challenged by, how many books can you read? How many pages can you read? Whatever it happened to be for that summer. And so, anyway, thank you very much. And
One quick question.
one quick question.
Have you ever thought about not meeting at 7 a.m. and moving that time later?
We've talked about it. I think that, part of the problem is that other things meet in the evenings, and so it's kind of like, okay, it's a morning meeting, but very few people have morning meetings except if they have jobs, and of course we understand if they have a job meeting, so.
I've just wondered over the years if it restricts people from being able to volunteer for the library board.
It might.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
wondering if you'd had that discussion.
We've had the discussion among the people who are already going there at 7 in the morning. So, yeah.
Carol, I have one question. I should have got it in earlier, but have you had any challenges to any of your holdings by outside influences? Okay, good. Thank you.
And I would, Chris, did you have something on that? No? Thank you. And could you introduce your members that are here with you this
sorry.
evening?
I'm Carol Harding, for those who don't know. And
Need to stay close to the mic, Carol, so.
okay. Next to Chris is Madeline Fisher, and Deb Dar is at the end there.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank
I
you
have
all for
another
coming.
meeting to go to at 7.
Thanks for coming and thanks for sharing all the great news. We really love it, appreciate it. And we'll hear a little bit more, I think, about summer reading because several folks in this room had the opportunity to share about their favorite books and make recommendations for summer reading. So that if you have not yet seen that video, you'll have to catch that. Learn a little bit about different options, including a nameless staff member who likes to spend his summers reading 2,000-page books on, things. Yeah. And other people in this room who were asked to provide a recommendation and brought 5, but that's okay. So. Catch that video. It's very fun and a great opportunity to get people excited about the programs in our libraries. That brings us to our business agenda, and we start off this evening with a public hearing in order to adopt our economic opportunity analysis. So we'll call Suzanne Duffner and Carter Craig up. We'll have a staff report, then open a public hearing for any additional information or comment before we deliberate.
Good evening. I'm Madam Mayor, members of the City Council, Suzanne Duffner, Community Economic Development Director for the City of Monmouth, and I'm joined by Carter Craig, who is going to give the staff presentation for the public hearing. There is a legislative public hearing script that we need to read into the record, so I'm not sure. Greg, if you're okay with reading, do you have a copy of the script or would you prefer that staff read it? Yeah.
All right, so this evening we have a public hearing on Legislative Amendment 25-01 to consider amendment of the Monmouth zoning ordinance and elements of the comprehensive plan, which contains a number of revisions to code chapters that pertain to commercial and industrial development, as well as updates to the economic and land use elements of the comprehensive plan. The City Council will receive testimony, and at the close of the public hearing, will make a final decision whether to adopt or not adopt the proposed amendments based on the complete record, including the testimony received at tonight's public hearing. These proceedings will be recorded. This hearing will be held in accordance with the land use procedures required by the city and the state of Oregon. This is a type 4 legislative procedure. For anyone wishing to speak, we are asking you to please use the speaker cards that are provided. When called upon to speak, you must be recognized by the chair and you must state your name and address for the public record. Before we begin, does any counselor wish to declare an actual or potential conflict of interest in this matter? All right. Yep, so seeing none, I will be.
All right, I will begin presenting the staff report on the adoption of the EOA. We've been working on this for about the past 12 months, and we've had a couple meetings recently with this body and the Planning Commission. So this is more of an update of what's before you today and what work we've been doing. As I said, this project was initiated in the summer of 2025, utilizing funds from the Department of Land Conservation and Development. Those funds were used to hire the services of Johnson Economics and MIG Planning, who are two consultants who work in this area. The purpose of the EOA is to draft an updated buildable land inventory for commercial and industrial land, forecast the needed land in those two sectors at the end of the planning period, which is 20 years out, identify target industries, and as well as draft some implementation strategies. Throughout this process, there was fairly robust public engagement at every step of the way in different ways. The graphic on the right shows some of the engagement strategies that correspond with the different phases of the project. The procedure tonight on this legislative amendment, the Planning Commission met at their first meeting in June, their second meeting in May to review the EOA. They had also seen it before. They voted to recommend that you adopt it with this small amendment that I've included here on the slide. You can find it on page 108 of the packet. For the definition of data centers, which is a new category of land use that we introduce, the characteristics note some features typical of this development. Planning Commission wanted a high usage of water, also mentioned along with power, just to kind of fill out the picture of what a data center looks like and some of the things to consider as we think about that use. So that was what the Planning Commission did, and so now it is before you all with the recommendation to decide whether or not to adopt it. The key findings of the related to our employment land stock is that there's a forecast of an additional 1,460 jobs that will be located in Monmouth by the end of the planning period, which is 2044. So that is sort of the demand that we expect to see for space, and then the next step is to reconcile that with the supply, which is the buildable land inventory. So we found that to accommodate those jobs based on the projections of what sort of industries that they would be most likely to occur, and that we needed 50 acres of commercial land and 29 more acres of industrial land. Our supply in the buildable land inventory concluded that we have 4 acres of commercial land and 43 acres of industrial land, meaning there's a 45-acre deficit in commercial land and a 14-acre surplus in industrial land. But there is a sort of further stipulation. The analysis went a step further and took a look at the parcel sizes that are often required by industrial and commercial users, and found that there is a need for parcels of a larger size, both in industrial and commercial uses. So whereas we have a surplus of gross acreage in the industrial category, it's a lot of small parcels that are not necessarily conducive to industrial uses. Another sort of category of findings relates to the target industries, and these have been based on community input and analysis through the engagement that we did as part of this, but also some other documents, including the Economic Development Strategic Plan. The target industries include manufacturing, broadly inclusive of food processing and green industries, medical tech, professional, office work, scientific and technical services, healthcare services, retail trade, lodging and dining, arts, entertainment, and recreation. The graphic on the right side of the screen kind of shows the 4 different pools that we use to compose this list of target industries. There are also in this package some code amendments. These affect both the comprehensive plan and as well as the Title 18 zoning code. So as I mentioned earlier, when I discussed that amendment that Planning Commission offered, there's the addition of the data center use category. That gives us a better way to, when those kind of businesses come in, we have a better way to categorize them and regulate them. The introduction of building orientation standards to the commercial retail zone. This basically requires that in the commercial retail zone, which is primarily out down East Main, that the businesses are required to orient their entrances towards the street, and there's a couple other ways they can achieve that too. Lastly, the code amendments make standards for industrial development more clear and objective by putting some quantitative numbers on things like light and sound pollution. So the document concludes with implementation strategies. These are the 21 total strategies split among 5 categories for us to basically achieve our target industries, reconcile the supply and demand of commercial industrial land. The 5 categories are land need, policy and code, support and expand employment targeted industries, strategies that support small business development, and strategies that are related to workforce initiatives. They can be found in full with further explanation on page 60 to 63 of the packet. So our recommendation tonight is to adopt Legislative Amendment 2501, the EOA. There are actions and a simple motion included on the slide. Thank you. I'm happy to hear any questions.
All right, are there any questions of staff before we invite public testimony?
I could wait until after the public testimony subsides, but it may be a while, so I'll jump in right away. Just a question, and as you did that, Carter, you mentioned in the EOA document here, there are code amendments that are embedded in that. So if we, and hopefully when we approve this, does that include the code amendments as well, or does that just identify that this is going to be something that's going to come through the process and we'll get the details later?
Yeah, so the amendments to the zoning code as well as the comprehensive plan are included in the motion. They are specifically spelled out, I believe, in attachments 2 and 3, or 3 and 4. But there's separate attachments that are titled, I believe, Development Code Updates and Comprehensive Plan Updates in the packet. That is the text of those amendments.
Yeah, I missed that, and we'll read those before we get to that. There are the 21 recommendations that are provided for us, and there's a lot of these that are low cost, no cost. There are a lot of these things that we're sort of already doing, and then there are some that are probably not doable. And so I guess the question that I would have for the team is, how are we going to crack this nut? Because we don't have the parcel sizes, most likely. Those parcels are private property for the most part, with owners' interest and so on. We've got a deficit, and we can move some of those around, between industrial and commercial probably. We're already really pinched on housing, and that's another thing that's coming forward to us. So, and then we've got a new transportation plan coming. So I guess to summarize it, how are you guys gonna keep all the balls in the air? And more seriously, how are we gonna prioritize this, relative to the housing need, analysis? I guess that's the biggest question. Because one of the mistakes that we can make, in my estimation, if we chase one of these and we say we're gonna move everything into commercial and rezone industrial where we can, and housing goes out the window. And you could do the reverse of that almost as well. So I'm curious how you're gonna approach the implementation of this.
I think that's a great question. I think this is an opportune moment because the housing needs analysis is relatively recent. It's about 5 or 6, so it's getting a little dated. But at this moment, we've got both the commercial, industrial, and residential picture. We have a fairly good idea of what those needs are kind of around the same time. So this is probably a great time for us comprehensively to take all that data and make those kind of complicated decisions with trade-offs. I think practically how we're going to keep the balls in the air is we'll probably do something similar that Suzanne and I do with the housing and residential side, where we annually or more often present to the planning commission, kind of have more of a work session that's a little more open and conversational, talking about reviewing what the implementation strategies are, discussing some of the work that we've been done, and then opening the floor of where all the opportunities and where the effort needs to be put. I think that's how we'll start doing. But I would acknowledge that there's a lot of things to keep an eye on with this, and there's some tough nuts to crack. But keep working on it.
Gosh, and I had one last one, and it's escaped me at the moment. So I'll come back.
Yes, Councilor Ridgway.
Thank you. So I was looking at the proposals for the initiatives, and again, going back to the low cost, no cost discussion, most of these are very doable, it appears. The last two, numbers 20 and 21, I was looking at it as potential costs to the city to support local affordable housing developers. It mentions subsidized affordable housing as one key segment of the workforce housing puzzle. Doesn't specify that would be a city subsidy per se. Does that infer or imply that Monmouth as a city would be providing these subsidies, or are they just talking about general subsidies at the state or the federal level?
I think that's much more likely. I mean, we know we generally don't have the resources or the mechanisms to do very large scale subsidized housing at the local level. But it is, useful to have it documented in these plans and have it documented in a variety of our plans, so that if we do go and apply for some funds to help make some workforce housing happen, that we can tell those grantors this is definitely on our radar. This is something that's well incorporated into our vision. It's not just a knee-jerk thing we're doing. So I think you're correct to point out that there's a lot of uncertain things, and that's definitely one of those ones where if opportunities develop, we come back to this board and the planning commission and talk about what it would look like to pursue that.
And then similarly with the child care's workforce readiness issue, I think we would all support that adequate child care be a priority for the city. How we support that is a different question. That's a financial commitment to child care for new businesses or new employers. I would have some concerns about that, as it's going to be another budget item. So am I reading that correctly, or is it more of a general statement of us supporting businesses or child care providers that may be available?
I think it's closer to that general support.
Sorry, I would just add that this doesn't commit us to anything financially. It's more of a general guiding policy, that, you know, we have future opportunities like Carter had mentioned, we can, you know, is there a way that we can explore that? And again, we would bring those back to council or planning commission, certainly before we made any financial commitments on those if it wasn't already, you know, in our budget. But I can think of an example of this most recently. There's been a number of grant opportunities to start up or expand childcare services in Polk County, because we're considered a childcare desert. And so having policies like this really makes it easy for staff. Like, do you need a letter of support? You know, can we provide that to you for your grant application? Is there a way that we can expedite or help navigate our permitting process to make sure that it happens in a timely manner and efficient manner? So yeah, those are kind of just some examples that I've seen of how that kind of work.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's a well-cited example in Yamhill County of an employer wanting to incorporate daycare, childcare into facilities, and this, you know, having to maybe look at codes or variances or things to make that happen. Again, no cost to the city, but to ensure that we can try to smash barriers to those things. Councillor Carey must have thought of his other question.
Snap back to me. You know, and Carter, you made an excellent point that this is a document that would allow us to provide backing for grant and supportive information for grant requests and so on. And it's also important to note, and if councilors are concerned, that the adoption of this does not obligate us to fulfill all of them. It's aspirational in some ways, it's guiding in some ways, and so while you look at that and you think, man, we're getting over our skis here, and actually we aren't. But it allows us to have a framework for positive economic development planning. So without obligating us, you know, beyond our means. So it's a good deal. There's a lot of work gone into this.
Councillor Overs?
I'd like to echo John's comment. I was looking at this piece about subsidized
We're not
housing.
at comments or let's go ahead and just finish up the hearing part, and then we can do comments as we deliberate. Okay. Let us get off track. So I am going to ask if there is any public comment regarding the adoption of Legislative Amendment 25-01, either in the room, seeing none, or has any been submitted?
We have not received any public comment.
Right. Thank you. Then we'll continue with comments and deliberations.
So I saw that item 20 and subsidized affordable housing, and John, your word aspirational was good. I saw it as a placeholder to say if an opportunity arises, we've got this little piece in here that allows us to act. It does not say, oh, we're gonna have a new budget line next year. So I saw that the same way, and I just wanted to reiterate that same point.
Other questions of staff? All right. So close the public hearing, and there is a motion in the packet regarding this, or variety of actions one could suggest.
I will move to adopt Legislative Amendment 25-01.
Second.
All right, thank you, Councillor Carey, for the motion, and Councillor Belts for the second. Any additional questions pop to mind? I will ask for a roll call on this, please. Yeah.
Councillor Ridgway,
Aye.
John Oberst,
Yes.
Carol McKeel,
Yes.
Christopher Lopez,
Aye.
John Carey,
Aye.
Councillor Belts,
Yes.
Mayor Phillips? I don't get to vote. This one. I just wanted to check, so we mentioned that this motion would include adoption of potential code changes and things, right? So did we need to specify that at all in our motion?
I don't think so, no. You're fine.
We incorporate all of the attachments by motion.
That's correct, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, and we will return with an ordinance too as well to adopt, and you'll see them then.
oh yes, this isn't the last of this. All right, thank you. So looks like motion passes 6-0, so please bring the ordinance back and we will review this again.
This was a lot of work, you two. Thanks. This is
Great
really
work.
good stuff. Appreciate it.
The consultants are very complimentary of Monmouth. They said we were gold star, one of the most active community participation in our process. So, yay, not surprised for us, but it's good to hear from the outside.
And they meant it nicely, I'm sure. All right, that brings us to our second action item, which is the intergovernmental agreement for the regional water treatment plant. And I'm waiting for, yes, our city engineer, David Carr.
Thank you, Mayor and Councilors. Again, my name is David Carr. I'm the city engineer. I'm providing an update. City Manager Rochelle Roden had been previously authorized to enter into negotiations for this IGA. I'm here to provide an update of where those negotiations have led us and what our next moves are. We received the revised IGA at the end of May. Monmouth, Independence, and Polk County have all reviewed it, as well as every jurisdiction's council, and it's been revised and gone through numerous iterations. It's at the point now where I think it's equitable for everybody involved. We have everything, the big hurdles that we requested have all been addressed. But I do want to clarify, this IGA is only for phase 1 of this study, and it provides Monmouth an off-ramp, so to speak, if we get to the point and it's not advantageous for our city. We're not committed to the millions and millions of dollars that are going to be spent on a project like this. We're going to focus on preliminary engineering, assess the point of diversion in the river to verify capacities that we can actually get the water out of the river that every city in this process needs, and everybody can realize the full potential of their water rights that are all going to be invested in a project like this. Couple other items that were added to this at the last minute. City of Independence was given a $440,000 grant. And we fought to get that split between everybody because obviously those grants don't, their opportunity for that grant arose out of having multi-jurisdictional involvement in a project like this, right? That's a huge green flag for anybody for grant processes or anything like that. We are still pursuing realizing our own water rights outside of this process due to one, can't control the schedule. We have water rights at that point of diversion that we need to exercise. It's a pretty simple process. We have a consultant, Summit Water Resources, which is a different consultant than who's handling the regional facility. And we have a path forward to make the use of our water rights so that nothing happens in the long term. During this project, we can still use the water at that location, at the Willamette Wellfield. Still kind of experimental. To realize our water rights, we have to connect it to our system. We've got a project right now. We're going through that right now. So there's also in this IGA, they're going to create an oversight committee, and that does involve a person from each jurisdiction on this committee. It's not one from Monmouth, 5 from Independence, and 4 from Polk County. It's not population based or anything like that. Everybody's going to get one point of contact that'll be on this oversight committee for this project. So they'll be up to date and at any time up to that phase 1. We can get out of it at that time, so to speak. But there's also, we can stay involved and move through phase two, that agreement does allow us that opportunity to do it without having to go back through an entire another IGA with all the other jurisdictions. There is 3 phases, obviously, to phase 3 is the construction. Right now, Polk County is on board, Independence is on board. I believe they took it to council last week. They're waiting to sign the agreement on their side till they actually have physical control of the property, which is a process they're going through right now. I'm not exactly sure where that stood, but in talking to Public Works Director from Independence, that should have happened last week. But I haven't gotten an update from them. I'm not sure if they've actually taken it or anything like that. That's kind of it from the big picture. Your packet did include the budget breakdown. I'm not sure if you've gone through that, but there were every jurisdiction split the cost 33%. I did want to point out there were some numerical differences between the water rights commitments from each jurisdiction. That just has to do with the complexity of each jurisdiction's water rights. We've got another water right at Buena Vista we're trying to move in, but we're trying to get some feedback on what kind of penalty we'd get from some of the new laws that were put in place. If we were going to get a massive penalty, we're not going to move the water rights. It's more advantageous to leave them in place. It's some of the fish laws. If you move those water rights, they don't just give them to you straight across. You get a penalty, and they don't tell you what that penalty is until you're through the process. I have verified there is opportunity in that process for us to back out at the last moment if the penalty is said to be too stiff. So there's some. That's why our number for the water rights part of the scope is a little higher than Independence's. Ours is a little more complicated. And we're addressing that with our consultant too, and they're providing input and feedback to make sure everything gets done above board and on time, because we have a sunset on our rights that Independence doesn't have. They have a sunset, just not as quick as ours is. So at that, I provided 3 alternatives. Obviously, authorize Rochelle Roden to execute the IGA, request changes to that IGA, and we still have time for that if there's something we feel like we need addressed due to the thing with Independence and their timing. So I think there is some time there for us if something comes out or we want something addressed, or to direct the city manager not to authorize the IGA. I do point out that the cost implications for Monmouth is about $295,000, and it has been budgeted already. And that does include contingencies and some of those things to narrow down the chances of overruns or anything like that. So we feel it's a pretty good number, and it's been gone through numerous times to make sure it's all above board. So if you have any questions for me, I got into the last moment, but I've spent the first 2 weeks reading through every report. I've met with Independence outside of it. I've done everything I can to get up to speed, and I feel pretty confident I've got my arms around it, because it is a complicated project that they don't do in Oregon very often, and it's a great opportunity.
Thank you, and I will note one of the largest expenses is the engineering, and that's split evenly amongst us. And I know there were some. I saw a very early draft of this that feels like those engineering costs were a much larger percentage of the total cost. It seems.
Yeah, and I don't think I think they just took the word at what those numbers were, and we've been through it in a little more detail, and having our consultants provide some feedback on what it's actually going to take to get through some of this process and get that number in check. So
it was like 70% or something at the total. So,
yeah,
all right.
It was the first one wasn't in Monmouth's best interest, in my opinion. We need that engineering report is going to tell us roughly what those cost impacts are going to do the. It's called a rainy system. I'm not sure if everybody knows what that is, but it's put in the river, it collects the water, and it goes to their system. But you know what all the permitting is going to be like. There's regulations changing every 6 months in Oregon as it relates to water rights and things like that. So it's a difficult project, but we've got some pretty good consultants, and I think it'll go well.
All right, thank you. Councilor Overs.
In an ideal world, phase one will take how long?
Say that again?
How long do you think for phase one?
I think they said it was about a year to get through phase one.
And assuming that everything comes together and money flows from the federal government and the state government, we're managed to pull this together, we might start pumping water through this facility in 2027,
I'm an engineer, John, I don't assume.
No, good idea. Okay.
No, but realistically, Independence needs it. I think they have to start using that water by 2027.
Okay.
Which knowing what they've got to do, the engineering and building a water treatment plant is a massive thing, but they're doing a package system, so it has at least that's what the plan at this point is. The engineering study might dictate a different type of facility, but they're packaged, so they have their treatment. And if somebody else needs more capacity, it's like I don't know. It's just the pre-built that you can just keep daisy chaining to increase.
Modular.
So you can, it's modular. So you can keep doing it. If you end up with different chemicals, you can do different modules if you need to address other options.
Good. Okay, thanks.
Counselor Carey.
Thank you, David. You know, you talked about giving Monmouth an off-ramp. My concern is other people taking an off-ramp. Independence going in their own. Polk County sort of taking their, because at each phase, somebody can step out of that. And while it's comforting to know that we can get out of it, looks like a bad deal, it makes me nervous that somebody else may back out. We've invested a hell of a lot of money. And if it's going to go forward now, our cost just increased 50%. We need water. I mean, all municipalities, cities do. Water rights certainly are a key to that, and utilization is important to keep the water rights. Do you? And I know you're new to it, but do you have any concern about the stability of our other two partners?
I really don't, right? Polk County's in it to bring their water rights to get used. They're not going to be a water supplier. So they're a financial contributor to exercise their rights. They just have to. Independence, if we get into the engineering study and there's problems, the water treatment plant's just going to go someplace else because they need the water. They're considerably behind their projection of water.
Sure. Well, it's you know, I mean, I'm glad we're doing this. I just, you know, anytime you get into something this large with two other partners, you know, it's always, it makes you a little bit nervous.
Right. The critical thing for me is during this engineering study, if they do the study at that point of conversion along the river and they can't get the water out of it that everybody needs, right? There has to be a strategy for those people not to be involved. But there is, I mean, they don't think that's going to be an issue. We're setting this up with this IGA and going into phase 2, where if somebody else Lucky Get Water wants to come and connect to the system, there's options for that. But they will have to reimburse or pay significantly the other jurisdictions that have been involved. Yeah. So yeah, that's certainly a risk, right? But I just don't see that happening with the urgency Independence has and Polk County situation.
You saved me from asking the question, who needs it worse? You know, us or Independence? And it sounds like Independence is pretty invested in this.
Yes,
so
100%.
We'll be a good partner with them.
Yeah, we have, you know, our water, we need water. Everybody needs water. Water's going to be, in 10 years, it's going to be like gold. And we have our well project going on over at MC1 that's going to increase our capacity to get us to that point. And if we can't get to that point, then we'll have to step back and expand our existing systems. You know, we have those 3 wells there at the Willamette well field. That's going to be the point of conversion. So if the Rady system goes through, we have to study how it's going to impact our wells. And so that's all supposed to be part of that engineering report. So there's going to be a lot of beneficial information for the city of Monmouth, even if we don't move forward with that project.
Other questions? Yes, Councilor Ridgway.
I may have missed it. What would you approximate for phase 1 as far as time frame before before we have some additional information to work with.
It's gonna be about a year for phase one study. Because they have to monitor, they'll put in monitoring wells and monitor the river and try to take average data over years for water levels, and it gets pretty complicated, but there's both, consultants are water specialists, that's all they do, is municipal water system and water rights.
Fun job. All right, seeing no other questions, there is some alternative motions in your packet.
I would move Monmouth City Council authorize City Manager Roden to enter into an IGA with Polk County and the City of Independence to complete a feasibility study and development of a preliminary engineering report for a regional water treatment plant.
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Oberst, for the motion, and Councilor Lopez for the second. Seeing no other questions, we'll go ahead and take a roll call vote on this as well.
Counselor Oberst,
Yes.
Counselor McKeel,
Yes.
Counselor Ridgway.
Aye.
Counselor Lopez.
Aye.
Counselor Belts,
Yes.
Counselor Carey.
Aye.
Counselor Ridgway.
Motion carries 6-0, so we will have you go ahead and sign off on that. And thank you, David, for jumping into this. Thank you, Rochelle, for jumping into this, because this has been going on for about 3 years now. So.
And I want to say thanks to both of y'all for taking what was initially a very, we'll just say a lean one direction and moving it into an equitable position for all parties involved. And I appreciate the hard work that went into that.
All right, and here we get to hear from Suzanne Defner again as we consider new land use.
Right, yes, hello again. I'm here tonight to present changes to our land use fee resolution. So we've had a couple of new planning applications that have been added to our list of existing applications that we're required to process, and these were as a result of a couple of new state laws that passed to support housing production, housing development. One of them creates a process for what we call adjustments and allowing some deviations from our code for quantifiable standards that may be barriers to allowing more affordable housing to develop. So that's one of them, an adjustment process that was authorized by Senate Bill 1537 and then House Bill 3395, which we just recently had an application for emergency shelter siting. So we have those two new applications. We're proposing to slot those in at a level of $337 to process a housing adjustment, and that's similar to our minor variance process or application fee, because we only had one of these so far, and so to go by in terms of processing time, but the housing adjustments seem to most closely align with the workload with a minor adjustment, so that's why we are proposing that. And then for the emergency shelter siting, we're proposing an application fee of $730, which is consistent with our fee for a design review for a building under 15,000 square feet. And again, this is our best estimate of what what a similar process would look like for the time it takes staff to review those. So I will say the one that we did process, since it was the first out of the gate, that if we added up our hours, it would have been much higher than 730. But you know, the first one is always, it takes a little bit longer with the learning curve and figuring out the process. So trying to keep those fees as reasonable as possible, but knowing the pressure that the general fund will continue to feel and experience, recouping some sort of expense for the staff time that's needed to process these applications. Those application types are shown in the attached resolution in your packets. Resolution 2017, they're shown in red underlined italic, so they're easy to find. So those are the only two that are being added that are new. And then they would just have those fees adjusted per the cost of living index that would go up incrementally annually to keep up with those costs. So there is a proposed motion on page 130 of your packet when you're ready for that, and I would be happy to answer any questions you might have about those two fees.
Councilor Ridgway.
So you mentioned that the fee, the emergency shelter siting fee was based on to be consistent, was based on the design review for a building under 15,000. So it's consistent there. Do you have any sense of how our fees would compare to other cities? Are we in line with what most cities would charge? Are we high end, low end?
Yeah, it's a great question. I have not done the extensive research to do a fee comparison with other jurisdictions at this point. We have done some like early research of just kind of poking around and looking at application forms and processing from other cities. Every city is different where they post their fees, and these are not land use decisions, so the application fees were not easy to find. So I don't have a sense of where other communities are at. We did it kind of based on our process and again, just recouping a portion of it. It wouldn't be necessarily the full cost to try to keep it more, affordable and reasonable to fee. I haven't looked at other jurisdictions at this point for that.
That applies to all our fees, right? We haven't done a fee comparison.
Right. Depending on how many cities we look at, that's pretty labor intensive activity to go through. So yeah.
I'm sure there's a consultant out there somewhere we could hire. Councilor McKeel.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Ms. Duffner, I was concerned about, I understand that the city needs to recoup the labor costs, but with an emergency shelter, it's often with a group that doesn't have the money and they're actually taking care of a great need that we have in our city. Is there any way that an agency that's just barely scraping by, but they're going to be able to do this shelter for our residents, can ask for a waiver of that $733 if in special circumstances? I know sometimes they have money, but I think sometimes they don't.
Yeah, that's a great question, Councilor McKeel. So that my understanding, our zoning ordinance does give that policy choice to the council. That's not currently a staff level decision, but certainly an applicant can come to the council or go through staff and make that request. Because we have a number of nonprofits that apply for applications over time with doing great work in our communities, daycare facilities, another example. So that would the kind of a case by case exception to the fee would come to council, and they could weigh that if whether it made sense in that particular case.
And again, that's true of any fee in this.
Yes.
In our fee structures. All right. Any other questions? Or there is a motion to consider resolution number 2017.
If nobody else will do it, I move to approve resolution 2017, approving new land use fees for housing adjustments and emergency shelter siting applications.
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Opers for the motion and Councilor Lopez for the second. And see no additional thoughts. We will do a roll call on this. Counselor McKeel?
Yes.
Counselor Lopez?
Aye.
Counselor Carey?
Aye.
Counselor Belts?
Yes.
Counselor Ridgway?
Aye.
Counselor Oberst?
Yes.
And we thereby adopt resolution number 2017 on unanimous vote. And we've got another one coming up here. So, resolution number 2018, another one of those last minute fiscal year financial transfers. Our finance director, Susie Marston, is out this evening. So, Rochelle Road.
Thank you, Mayor. And just to give you an update, our finance director will be out until July 14th on medical leave. So I'll be doing this one and the work session item. So with the $3 million in COVID funding that we received for the trolleys, which has to be expended by the end of June, we have about $146,000 that's remaining in that fund. So the trolley team was trying to figure out what we could do. We have the stop shelters going up. We have all these things. So we've done everything we can, and we actually found a used trolley that has very low mileage on it, and it was $146,000. We had rented a bus to be a backup for when the trolley down, so that we can pull them in, and that runs at about $6,000-7,000 a month. We have since sent that back. All the trolleys are running well now, but in looking at that, we thought it would be a great idea to have a backup trolley. And so what this motion and this resolution is for is to be able to transfer the funds in the transit fund from contingency, so that we can purchase that trolley and use that funding by the end of the month. And so that's what we're seeking your approval on.
Where's it coming from?
I'm sorry, I don't know that. It's Model 1, but I'm not too sure where it's coming from. And that dollar amount includes the transit of the trolley as well. So it's like about 100, yeah. So, and then we'll expend all the funds.
Counselor Lopez.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And thank you very much for pursuing this opportunity. Couple questions, couple just clarifying questions about details surrounding the trolley itself. You mentioned that it was a Model 1. I'm not familiar with that lingo. How does this compare to our current trolleys?
It's a little bit longer than our current trolleys, and it is diesel. We are going to try to do reusable diesel if we can. We're going to work with Chariots on that piece of it, but it is a little bit longer, and I'm sorry I don't have the exact feet on that. We are going to, it looks pretty comparable to the current trolleys. We will have to do some painting to bring our colors into it. But, yeah.
Great. And then aside from the painting, are there any other significant retrofits that the new trolley would need to, come in line with our fleet?
No, none that we're aware of.
And then driving the trolleys, I assume they all drive fairly similar. We would need to retrain or, okay.
Yes.
And I'm sorry to just get into the weeds. Do we have space to store a fourth trolley? Because I know we were discussing trolley storage locations, right?
Yes. Our storage unit does have an additional lane in it. Currently, we park the senior center bus in there, so we will have to move that out, and the trolley would go into that storage.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And would this be fitted with the same electronics and everything that we have in the others, right? Wi-Fi and yes. Okay. Other questions? Although this is just a finance question.
Well, you mentioned finance. As we look at the future of trolley funding, not trolley funding. As we look at the future of trolley funding, have we explored with the original grantor an option to roll over these funds into another fiscal year?
We have, and we aren't able to do so. We have done an extension, and so we've pushed it to the limit, but no, we are not able to. We also looked at trying to prepay for operation operational expenses to be able to use that funding. And we were told, no, we cannot do that as well,
I know
per
how
the grant guidelines.
I know how sometimes your hands are tied, right?
Yeah.
So I think this is a creative use of these funds, and I'd rather use it than lose it.
Right, for a motion.
So I move adoption of resolution number 2018, a resolution approving a contingency transfer for the fiscal year 2024-2025 and directing the finance director to make appropriate entries.
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Belts for the motion, and Councilor Lopez for the second. See any additional questions? We'll do a roll call, please, Pam, on adoption of resolution number 2018.
Counselor Oberst,
Yes.
Counselor Ridgway,
Aye.
Counselor Belts,
Clang, clang, yes.
Counselor Carey,
Aye.
Counselor Lopez,
Aye.
Counselor McKeel.
Ding, ding. No, I just had to go with that. Yes.
Motion passes 6-0, and we will go ahead and make those entries so we get our budget in alignment with our spending, tenant spending. Alrighty, and we do have one other item, and that is the adoption of the strategic goals that we worked on earlier this year. Rochelle?
Thank you, Mayor. So just to do some background, in February of 2023, the mayor, the city council, and the leadership team met with SW Consulting, Sarah Singer Wilson, and prepared goals for a 2-year period. In February of this year, the same group met again and gathered to do a review or refresh of those current goals. The focus was to refine the goals to address current needs and their alignment with current resources through the end of June of 2025. So Sarah Singer Wilson's group put this together. Staff has reviewed extensively. All the department heads have reviewed all of their items. And now we bring it to the council for you to review and adopt. You are welcome to make changes if you so wish. These are your goals, and we will use this as our marching orders.
Comments, questions, other than my name is spelled on the introductory page.
I'm just thrilled to see the City Hall project no longer on the list.
Yes, old timers will recall that was on there for a really long time.
That was on there for when I started mayor and before, so it's been 30.
Councilor Lopez.
I share your excitement to have the City Hall project be taken off this. I may be fuzzy on my memory, but I believe at one point I had taken a deep dive into some very old minutes, and I hesitate to say, but I believe the first time I saw the City Hall project appear on a council agenda was in the late 80s. So it is incredible to not have it on this list. But moving on to the substance of the list, first, I'd just like to call out that this is a beautiful document. I particularly love the inclusion of our existing values. I recognize we did not renew the values. I do want to ensure that the value document, I believe it's on our website, it's a Word document, we'll maintain, because these are summaries of those values. Will that value document remain as a separate document? We're not making any changes to that.
That is correct.
Okay, great. And I love the summary. I think it makes sense in here. So I wanted to ensure that it wouldn't change what was existing there. Moving down, just a couple pieces about the structure of this, I think tripped me up just a little bit. Kind of getting into the first couple pages. Gosh, like we list, community needs, budget, economic development, housing, community engagement, etc. And at first blush, reading through page 7 of this, I thought to myself, oh gosh, we left a couple goals off there. Where's transportation? Where's climate? I do recognize that a couple pages later we see them. And so I was thinking, my memory is a little fuzzy. Did we just not cover those in depth in the environmental scan, maybe, and that's why they weren't included up top as well? So we have, if you look at the environmental scan section, and this is nitpicky, it doesn't matter, but as a casual reader, you might only make it through the first 7 pages and say, oh, there's the goals. Looks great. And those other goals are referenced, again, further down on that kind of, I'll call it the goal tear sheet, that green page. But if there could maybe be just some mention, even if it's just a header up there, so that way they're reflected in all the different parts of the process.
Okay, and it was transportation.
Transportation and climate.
We do mention them later. We just didn't mention them on that first page.
Yeah, and they are on the screen capture of that environmental scan sheet. And so not missing, but just thinking about what a casual reader might experience.
Yeah, and it's interesting because the current header, understanding the current context, said considered the needs, the physical environment, infrastructure, and community needs, and so some of those got lumped together in an interesting way. So, yeah. Yes.
Thank you for catching that. We'll have them up.
Yeah, and looking for my highlight, I had one more item. I'm gonna have to come back to it if I find it.
Other questions or comments? Councilor Carey.
Well, Councilor Lopez is getting back to his cogent question. I would just say as an overview, and because we've been consistent with the same consultant, that I think that these goals are being much integrated in a much greater manner than they have in the past. As I talk with, as I seldom do, but periodically talk to our department heads, they often reference, well, this supports our goal of sustainability or community engagement. So I think it's becoming, and I hope we can stick with this process because I think our staff and certainly us on the dais are becoming fluent in this, and I think it's resonating in the fact that we haven't made dramatic swings or shifts or sort of trinkets that we like, flashy objects that we want to go get. We've been pretty thoughtful. I think it's really become a meaningful document to us, and I hope we can consider continuing. Councilor Lopez, go get it.
Thank you, Councilor Carey and Madam Mayor. That provided me just the time needed to find the section I was going to focus in on. Moving down to, it is page 11 of this document, page 146 of our packet, the climate goal. Strategy 2.1, create an ad hoc advisory group or task force to focus on creating a pathway to climate action. My memory of the discussion around this was that we had discussed engaging, I think, a little bit more richly with the existing community-driven climate group. And so I wanted to ensure that this wasn't suggesting we would create something separate from that.
Yeah, it is not. It is to work with them.
Great. That concludes my questions. Thank you.
Other? Alrighty. This is an action item, people.
Madam Mayor, I move to approve the City Council Strategic Goals Refresh for the 2023-2025 goals.
Second.
Okay, so it's a refresh of the 23-25 goals, but it's actually our goals for the coming year, so. Do you want to make that clear?
It was kind of interesting because it was a refresh. It did look at the 2-year goals, and so that's why we put that in there. But we can say strategic goals for 2025.
I would like to amend my motion.
Go ahead.
Madam Mayor, I would like to amend the motion to read, I move to approve the city council strategic goals for 2025.
Amended second.
All right, thank you, Councilor Lopez for the motion and Councilor Belts for the second, and for the amended motion and second as well. Any last thoughts? Otherwise, we'll take a roll call vote to adopt the strategic goals of 2025.
Counselor Belts,
Yes.
Counselor Carey,
Aye.
Counselor Lopez,
Aye.
Counselor McKeel,
Yes.
Counselor Oberst,
Yes.
Counselor Ridgway.
Aye.
Wonderful. Thank you. And yes, they're very pretty. Very awesome. And I love the way the brand is incorporated throughout. All right, that takes us to our work session item, which is that discussion again about the public safety fee, as mentioned a couple of times in our budget process. And so, Rochelle, do you want to talk us through that?
Thank you, Mayor.
I did notice in the council packet, there is another document here about board and commission reappointments.
We'll do
Is that being put later? Thank you. Just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
So first of all, I sent an email and I sent the council this afternoon. I apologize that it was not in your packet so you could review it over the weekend. And because of that, I'm just going to go ahead and read the staff report so that we're all on the same page. On August 20th, 2024, the City Council established a public safety fee with the adoption of Resolution Number 1997. Per Section 7 of the resolution, an annual review is required. The total fee is $10.25, with $9.85 going towards the funding of certain Monmouth police services and 40 cents to be collected for the purpose of assisting low-income families impacted by the fee, and that's our public safety fee assistance. Collection of this fee began on October 31st, 2024. The public safety fee portion dedicated to the funding of Monmouth police services shall increase by 3% each July 1, beginning in 2025 and running through 2029. As of May 31st, 2025, total public safety fee revenue equals $336,573, which is a monthly average of about $42,000. The total amount spent on police services was $137,910. That's since May. And attached there is a spreadsheet showing the detail of the revenue and expenses for your review. I'd also like to make a note that the revenue collected in the first year, we noted at the time that would be collected and used over the 5 years. So I don't want it to look like we brought in 336 and we only spent 137. We knew that the collection would then go for expenses over the next few years. The current and projected needs of the police department are as follows. Funding for officers 15 and 16, ongoing funding to keep the community services officer full-time, continued funding at the 5.15 operating costs, which increased by an estimated 3 to 5% each year, and funding for police vehicles. Projections for all these costs were made through fiscal year 29-30 and at the time the public safety fee was established. While the addition of the public safety fee has helped stabilize the general fund in the near term, there is still concern of the continued downward trajectory of revenues not meeting the city's stabilization policy in future years due to revenue not keeping pace with inflation and rising costs. As part of the City Council Strategic Goals refresh process in 2025, the city is committed to researching additional revenue sources. Depending on the source, revenue generation coming online could take years. And we gave an example of property taxes from new development from, say, a UGB swap would be the additional revenue. The public safety fee assistance revenue collected each month is about $1,700 and is passed on to Cole County Family and Community Outreach to administer assistance for those families in need. Polk FCO is also who currently manages the city's other electric utility assistance program, which is funded through Monmouth Power and Light. to be used for Monmouth residents needing assistance with their utility bills. On June 3rd, 2025, Nicole Sunby and Stephanie Gilbert from Polk FCO presented an update on how the public safety fee assistance proceeds have been managed and allocated. Since the inception of the public safety fee program, Polk FCO has experienced that households do not come seeking assistance solely for the public safety fee amount, but rather for their account balance. When Polk FCO provides assistance, it uses the Electric Utility Assistance Program, the one funded through MPL, towards the electric utility balance, and then the PSF assistance is there for the public safety fee charge alone. As of May 31, total public safety assistance revenue generated is $11,948. Of that, $256 has been used by Polk FCO to assist 25 families with their public safety fee. This is an average of 4 families per month, or $41 a month. The need for assistance on the public safety fee appears to be substantially below the amount of revenue generated for this program. Polk FCO would prefer to transfer the balance of unused funds back to the city before June 30th until the city decides on how to use it. So staff is coming to the council to review that. There are some alternatives that Susie and I came up with. One could be lowering the public safety fee assistance portion from 40 cents to 2 cents, which would actually cover the actual demonstrated need for assistance. And then a decision would need to be made on what we're going to, how we're going to spend the funds, the other $10,000, $11,000 that have been collected so far. Consider allowing the 40 cents charge to be used on utility assistance services in addition to the public safety fee assistance. This would also require an update to the resolution. The resolution basically states we cannot do that. And then, or the elimination of the PSF assistance program in total. And so we would love the council to give us some feedback, and then we can bring it back to council.
All right, good. Thank you for that review. Councilor McKeel and Councilor Ridge.
Thank you, Rochelle. I have a question about the utility fund that we have for our residents. Is that always running, like just barely covering what the request is from residents? Is there a surplus in that as well?
You know, I wish I had the data for that. I know it's $10,000 a year that is provided from MPL for that. I honestly don't know, but I can look into that and get that information back to you. I think they expend most of it through the year. I just don't know specifically if there's more need and it's not covering that.
Councilor Ridgway, then Councilor Logan.
Thank you. So a couple. Well, one just confirmation. The council would revisit this particular issue annually, or the public safety fee allotment annually. Is that the intent?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. And the fee itself, was there a period of time that it was established for a certain number of years, or just ongoing until it's not?
It is through 2029.
Oh,
that's yes. And to be
thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I kind of took a little bit of a deep dive into this one because I have some conflicting feelings about this, and I wanted to unpack that. I'll try to be a little bit more brief here in Chambers, but since this is a work session, I'm going to share a little more than I normally would. Everyone, I think, loves opportunities to lower the cost burden to people and to families and to residents, right? Gosh, it's really tempting, that alternative number one, to be able to lessen some of the other fee increases that we've seen kind of across the board. But something kept nagging me as I started thinking about that, right? Unfortunately, I had a meeting canceled this afternoon, so I did have a chance to dig into this a little bit today. What was nagging me at the core was kind of the source of the need for the public safety fee to begin with. And so this is tacked on to the water bill, but this is not a water utility related fee, right? Were it not on the water bill, this would come out of our general fund. So it's not really a fee for service the way that we treat, the way that we treat our enterprise funds and our water bill, our water funds. This is something that would normally come largely from property tax revenues. And the property tax system, and I'm not going to get into 5 and 50, but yeah, but it is inherently it's close to, it leans toward a progressive tax. You buy a bigger house, a more expensive house, in theory, you pay more in property taxes. And that's a choice that people make, and that's drawn toward assets that people own. Whereas water is a fee for service, so it's more directly tied. This fee, this public safety fee, whereas normally it would be paid through those general fund revenues, property taxes, it's a flat fee. It is a regressive tax, right? So progressive tax, something that's tied toward a certain percentage of the wealth or assets that you have. Regressive is flat across the board, might seem more equal, but for individuals who have less assets, it actually takes up a much larger chunk of their disposable income, and so a much larger percentage of their assets or income. And so we've kind of taken, and yeah, it's $10, $11 a month, but we've kind of taken that chunk of income for the city and moved it from a more progressive taxing structure space to a regressive flat fee. And I think that's what hurts about the basis of about the basis of this this public safety fee. And I'm so glad that we have this safety fee assistance program in place. I think that's that necessary kind of check and balance there to pull it back into the realm of how this how these things were intended to be funded through the property tax structure. Now that I've gotten that off my chest, gosh, I feel a lot worse about item 1, right? Because that essentially takes that progressive function away from what we've designed here. And so item 3 as well. It might seem like a small amount, but sometimes those small amounts make a huge difference for an individual or family who's struggling. And so I would be in favor, I think, of some version of alternative 2. I did come up with an alternative 2 as well. Perhaps allowing that fee, because I do like tying it to the fee somehow, right? These funds are not necessarily meant per se to cover water bills. They're covering that portion that goes toward things that would be in the general fund. Right now, we only allow that fee to be covered once per water customer per year. And so if someone's hurting, if someone's at a spot where they need to apply for assistance, and that $10, $11 fee would be something they would get reimbursed back, gosh, if they're at that bad of a spot, that's probably more than just a 1-month thing. And so, I would be in favor. I think I've come back around full circle to being in favor of this alternative 2 as written, or to be in favor of some mechanism that allows that public safety fee for individuals in need, or for residents in need, to be able to apply that to more than 1 month's fee. How many? I don't know. I would leave that up to staff if we did decide to go that direction, whether it was 3 months in a calendar year or 6 or whatever it might look like. But that may be another solution to make sure that we maintain an equitable approach to this and have it mirror more the original funding stream where this fee would come from, which is the property taxes. Thank you.
Yes, the only thing I would take a slight exception to is that Monmouth did not choose to make our general fund dependent on the progressive property tax system and or choose a regressive tax in its place, right? We chose it because the original one just doesn't do the job.
Yeah. And my
yeah. Right. Just saying. We would all love it if we could, if the city had a mechanism for progressive taxation, similar to property taxes. But we don't. Councilor.
That is a lot to unpack, Chris, and I got to say that I share a lot of what your concerns are. I would note that, unfortunately, with our current property tax system, it's less progressive overall than it might be because we have properties that are massively under-assessed for the value of the property. Different parts of the state have that problem more than others, but and I think we have it less here than perhaps in other places. But there are folks who are living in very high-value properties. They're paying effectively close to nothing in taxes because that increase in value has happened since the passage of Measure 50. We seem in Oregon to have moved increasingly to a user fee for financing things. It used to be, the state made a real effort to help people get a college education. Now the state doesn't contribute much to a college education. It's on the individual. It used to be the state funded the Fish and Wildlife Department very thoroughly, and now it's hunting licenses and fishing licenses that go a long way to funding that. It's throughout the state and throughout every government service you can think of. More and more we are requiring users to fund it. As far as these two options go, when I look at option 2, I'm a little concerned about sort of a truth in advertising thing, that if we call it I'm not seeing that. Yeah, if we call it an assistance fund that is for the public safety fee, then that's what it needs to be. And if it covers more than that, we need to retitle it. If you want to go for more than 1 month, I'm on board with that. If we want to up the amount that we're putting into utility assistance in general, I think that's a discussion that's worth having. When I look at option 1, 2 cents would cover the amount that's going out right now, but part of me keeps hearing economic projections that may not be quite as rosy as they have been. Just saw a headline go by a couple of days ago. Where's the inflation due to tariffs? It's coming. Was the headline. It's not. We're not past that yet. There's still a lot of concerns about recession. If we were to go to trimming this fee, I would be in favor of maybe a bit more than 2 cents and see if a nickel generates, more revenue, but not a ton more revenue, to make sure that the funds are sufficient there to cover the need. If we wrap it around so allowing people to do this more than 1 time a year, we probably need more than that. So it's all, balancing act in a lot of ways. A balancing act in progressive, a balancing act in how much are we going to help people out with this, and what do we call it, and on and on. So anyway, that's my 10 cents. Thanks. My 40 cents.
Council.
I don't have any new and amazing thoughts, but I did think a lot about this. And after the last meeting, when we talked about it, my gut instinct was, yeah, we need truth in advertising. We told people this is what it's for. There's this assistance program. We need to make sure that remains. Now, obviously, there's more money in there than we anticipated. I was honestly shocked when I found out people could only use this once a year. Because if you need the $10 and 25 cents, whatever it is, you're probably going to need it more than once a year. So I would definitely be in favor of something between 1 and 2, not reducing it to 2 cents, maybe reducing it, I'm just throwing a number out, to 20 cents, half of what we're doing. Put that money aside and make sure somebody that needs it could use it up to 4 times a year. Just throwing that out there.
And I do want to say, I think from what Ms. somebody Walker said, is that is their policy at FCO. That is not our determination or our policy about how often they access probably any of the assistance funds that Polk FCO administers. So I think she said they kind of try to keep it to once a year in order to stretch the funds out as far as possible. Clearly that applies more to the limited actual utility assistance than to this fee. And whether or not they can administer that separately, I guess is a good question for them. They also mentioned to us that they would start probably having to charge to administer these assistance programs for us. And that would be another thing that obviously could dig not only into the actual MPL utility assistance, but into this clearly named public assistance, public safety fee assistance, just other consideration.
And we don't have the capacity to manage that internally then?
I don't think so, no. We don't. They determine need. They have other things they do to help determine ballot assistance. So, yeah, they're good at it. We appreciate the partnership. Yep, Councilor.
Informationally regarding the charge, and I don't have any specialized information regarding specifically FCO, but many public service nonprofits these days are moving to a de minimis structure at 15%. And so I think if they were to charge, and we could likely ask them if they would know, but we could probably pencil in 10 to 15% and be pretty close.
Go ahead, Councilor Mitchell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I initially didn't have any such naggings about option number one when I read through this. I thought, based on the last meeting that we had where we voted to increase multiple fees and going out to the ratepayers, this is a very unique opportunity to lower those demands, albeit cents, not necessarily dollars. But Councilor Lopez brought up some good ideas about looking back at the source of where this fee came from and what its purpose was for. My understanding was that it was a temporary fee, that it would ultimately come up to a sunset and require reauthorization. Excuse me. And initially, my thoughts were this buys the city time to put in a better plan to prioritize funding of the police department, so that this doesn't come up in the future and is not needed. Notice in our budget process, we were able to increase the budgets of other departments, well, relying on the public safety fund to offset the increased cost of the police department to afford additional officers, which were needed, community service officer, vehicles, and hopefully, I think there's still hope that we can find creative ways to fund the police department fully out of our general fund, rather than rely on a public safety add-on. The options we have today are what we've already discussed. I'm not proposing that we scrap the public safety fee assistance program. If there's still a need for it, it's clear there's $256 that have been allocated to families that are in need. I would expect that if those needs will continue, if not increase, with more visibility. The amount of accrual of this $11,948, even if it were increasing 2 cents at a rate of 2 cents per rate payer, is still going to outpace, at least for the next year. I'm looking at just 1 year ahead until we have a chance to relook at this. It would still outpace the amount of demand that at least I would expect from folks that are in need of help with this $10.85 or $10.00 or how much it was. So I would strongly support a reduction to the 2 cents and then we can reevaluate next year and see if this pace continues, if it changes, but there's more than enough cushion in there to buffer that demand, even if it does increase, and we're still adding to the fund. But yeah, if we continue to either keep the rates the same or ask for more, when we have an opportunity to reduce it for everybody, not just a few, I think we're missing out on a huge opportunity.
Councilor Bell.
So what you're suggesting would be to reduce it to 2 cents and then keep the money, the $11,000, have them keep that and utilize that over the next year, and then we rediscuss this in a year. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I'll remind us that 40 cents was a somewhat arbitrary number. I mean, I don't even remember, like, I think I came up with it, and I suggested adding something for the assistance, right? And 40 cents clearly is very generous and has yielded something that would help a lot of people offset that additional cost, even though again we're raising rates and that's going to cause additional hardship. With the fee being $9.85, if we went to 15 cents, we're at an even $10 a month fee. And for example, other communities that are also, a lot of them charging these kinds of public safety fees. I think our neighbors are getting down to $10 with their fee is their goal. So we would be at a $10 fee with 15 cents that go into the assistance program. Again, we'll see where we are again next year. Councilor.
Quick clarification, there's the last line, I'm on the second page of the staff report, third paragraph. Last couple of lines, no, I'm sorry, fourth paragraph. Polk FCO would prefer to transfer the balance of unused assistance funding to the city before June 30th. So will they hang on to the leftovers if we cut the fee way down so that they are sure to have enough money if the demand goes up, or do they just want to have that money off their books? What's the situation there? Because the ideal would be
that they wanted it off their books just to make sure going forward, but then we would transfer it back.
Okay. Okay, good enough.
The program to transfer it back on a monthly basis.
Right, so we can do a paper transfer back and forth.
Yeah, and I'll check with them to find out if they would keep it now that if anyone decides to go and see if they want to keep it. But it seemed like they wanted it off.
Okay.
But not that they were saying they would never administer it.
Correct.
I think it's bookkeeping. Councilor Carey.
I sort of, if they were wanted it off the books until we decide what we would do with it, I think was the language that I read there. One of the alternatives that is not presented here is that we just keep doing the same thing, and we give this a little bit of time. Now, $256 expended is not good. In terms of what we anticipated, but I think that there's a possibility that need will grow, that it will be more, readily identifiable. I really don't think, and I'm not ready to cut loose the whole public assistance fee entirely right yet, but the fact of the matter is it's not making an impact. I mean, it's 256, 14 families, something like that, 25 families, but it was less than that. But at any rate,
it says 25 families.
Yeah, but there was a qualifier on the other when the presentation was made, but it doesn't make any difference. It's a low amount, so I'm not ready to get rid of it. But I think that to cut it down to 2 cents is really hardly worth it. I mean, that's an insult to Polk FCO in my mind. So I'm of the mind that we sort of grin and bear it. We're not talking about a lot of money, And, but there is money there should it be needed. And then make a real look at the whole, I think to Councilor Ridgway's point, let's take a whole look at the whole public safety fee in total. Revisit that. We've got a 5-year sunset on it, but it doesn't mean we can't take a look earlier. I get the feeling we're just trying to tinker with things that are not really worth tinkering with at this juncture. So I think there's another, and last point, we are tied to the administrative procedures that are used by Polk FCO. So there's not much that we can do unless we really want to re-engineer their jobs. I don't think we do. So I think, unless there's really strong movement, I think that we ought to give some consideration to just letting it ride, and then when we've got some time, we'll only collect since October. So we'll see. And the word gets out. I don't know. I'm not ready to jump the ship quite yet.
Councilor McKeel, and I'm going to try and do some temperature taking to guide stuff.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I have the first question is, families are only allowed to use this special fee, special assistance once a year. So we actually don't have very good data that families need to have this money, because all that we know is 25 families applied to use it once. So it actually kind of worries me, because anybody who needs this 1 month is not going to have money the next month, usually. And so I'm kind of in favor of just keeping this, but kind of in a bigger sense, it would be good to get some numbers about how our residents are able to cope with these utility fees and the public safety fee. Because if we have families who need this every month because they don't have the $10, and I was a family at one point that I didn't have $10, then I think that's something that we should be looking at.
Yeah, and you're right. Their procedures are their procedures. We can certainly say it's okay to give this more than once, but doing that, and then if their bigger bill is their actual utility bill, and so whether or not they split that up, I don't know. But we can certainly guide them that we're okay with them using it more than one access. Okay, first of all, I just want to get a sense so that we can give staff something to bring back to us. What's the feeling about redirecting the purpose of the assistance? We call it a public safety assistance fee. Is there any appetite for redirecting it to other assistance uses? Not enough. Okay.
But I would like to know a little off of this, how much that fund is being tapped, that they need to have more money in the assistance programs in general.
That's what Rochelle said. She doesn't know how much of the $10,000 a year is being accessed, but she can get that for us.
Can I make a comment though? If you look at the Polk County Outreach Department memo that is part of, so it's on it's the second page. If you look from June 2024 to July of 2025, you'll see the City of Monmouth funds are a total of $10,230. So that shows they use the entire $10,000. So I think typically every year it's being used. But that's
right. Yeah. At least for the current year, they have used the entire 10,000 plus potentially some additional. But they have carryover.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's carryover. Yeah,
a prior year. Yeah. All right. Still not seeing an appetite for changing the purpose. How about an appetite for getting rid of the fee, the assistance portion of the fee? not seeing an appetite for that. All right, how about an appetite for lowering it to something? Potentially lowering. Okay, maybe we can have staff come back with a couple of options, but potentially the 2 cents is one consideration. No, not, okay, not a huge appetite for the 2 cents. So I would throw out 15 cents to make it a $10 fee. That's a consideration. And then maintaining the same fee. Just keeping the fee flat.
Yeah. So what I'm thinking of is the size of this. I don't want to call it a pot, but the $11,000. What is there any agreement or idea of how big we should allow that to grow before it's just wasted, unused revenue that people are paying unnecessarily? If we can come up with a cap, I would be interested in looking at it.
Yeah, I don't think there was a specific amount that was identified.
Yeah, no, there wasn't a specific, there was a time, we'll look at it next year. There was not a, hey, if it gets up to $20,000, let's stop. That's a pretty difficult thing for our accounting department program, I think. I think we kind of need to.
And Councilor Ridgway, I don't know that it would be wasted. Let's say that it did build up. Polk County wants to send it back. We could apply it to everybody's utility bills in an equal kind of way to refund some of what they've paid over the years. We could apply it to other aspects of public safety. There are actions this council could take, and I wouldn't call it wasted. It spread across $20,000 spread across 10,000 people doesn't come out to a huge amount per person, but it could be money that would be come in really handy somewhere for a really strong need that we otherwise lack funding for. So don't look at it as wasted funds so much as we'll have to figure out what to do with it later if it gets that big.
That makes sense. Just a refund sounds like a really appealing idea. If that were, I mean, really, it's a good problem to have because we have excess. When do we ever get to say that we have an excess of something? Well, we do. And if it were best case scenario, we continue to have an excess and we can return that to people that have overpaid over the years. But just a thought.
Councilor Carey.
I think if we have another year, if we've got $22,000 and we haven't spent $600, I think the whole thing goes away. But that's a discussion we could have then. And I think when we passed the public safety fee, that was to support our law enforcement. That was the Monmouth Police Department. From that, we took 40 cents and applied it to the assistance to help those impacted. So should that go away, I don't see us. I'm not going to be one in favor of rolling that fee back 40 cents. That's 40 cents more that's going to go to the named purpose, which is the public safety. So it would be that $11,000, if that were the amount, that is transferred to the purpose, well, not quite the purpose, but under the general category, the fee was initiated. So, but that's an in-depth discussion that I think we ought to have when we have more data. That's my position. I'm happy to do a couple of these things. But I think after we let it perk a bit, I hate to be too chunky, like I said.
Do you have some guidance? Do you feel guided?
Yes, I do. Thank you very
All right, so this will come back to us. And we'll go through this all again. Awesome, thank you. All right, sorry, before we get to our reports, which includes reviewing the appointments, the board commission, I propose taking a 6-minute break. So we are in a break for 6 minutes.
This conference is no longer being recorded.
All right, we shall reconvene and.
This conference will now be recorded.
Thank you very much. We are recording. A couple of things for the mayor's report. I just want to report we've had a couple of great opportunities in the community in the last couple of weeks. And one of those was last Thursday, and that was to cut the ribbon on the new shelter on Stadium Drive. And Councilor Carey and Councilor Lopez were also available at that. And I think there was a lot of acknowledgement from all the partners, all the principals, that the process that was initially thought of as to how we might have a shelter in Monmouth was a little rushed, and that the way it was presented to the community originally, without as much input from the community, led to a very contentious process and ultimately a fairly unsuccessful process. But once there was a better sense of the collaboration and being able to really determine what the community concerns were and how those could be addressed, the shelter is an absolutely amazing space. I think it is a place of great, it'll be a potential for a place of healing, of safety, of support, and really a nice addition to that part of town, because the building is unrecognizable from the condition it's been in for the last few years. So I just want to say that it doesn't mean it's going to be easy. It doesn't mean we won't have difficult things that we have to work through, either with neighbors, with the university, with the folks that are staying there. We, as our police said once, anytime there's a new sort of more dense living space introduced into our community, there are more potentials for calls for service, but those will be handled just as other calls are. And I really also appreciate there was a lot of representation there from folks at the university, and the provider of services, Church of the Park, is working closely with the university to identify college students who need that kind of shelter and that kind of housing, supportive housing, to be able to finish their education. So I just want to say it's a really great facility, very thoughtful, and really great partnership. And seeing the folks who were there to help cut that ribbon, I'm hopeful that we can have better conversations going forward as we find maybe challenges with this. But anyway, that was really awesome. And I do want to thank the group that puts on the Monmouth Pride Festival. That was awesome. It was really great to see our park full of vendors, sponsors. They have grown this event every year, and it's just really fun. Music and food, and seeing people of all ages really get to interact and feel the sense of excitement that goes along with a event celebrating community, and I just really enjoyed that. And I'm gonna steal Michelle's thunder. Can I? We got text messages today that the governor signed our bill. So the UGB swap process, right? Taking some land out of the urban growth boundary, putting other land that's more developable into the urban growth boundary, has only been accomplished a couple of times in the state of Oregon. And now Queen Rochelle has two of them Yeah, and I cannot believe what we've gone through these last couple of years, and you all know what Suzanne Duffner has on her plate, and the fact that that one was also in constant communication, was really trying to make sure that this request of ours to the legislature was reasonable, it was supported, and it was ultimately technical enough that they could see that we had done the homework, and yet not so technical that they just kind of glazed over about it. Her presentations, the information that she developed and was able to share about why we need this and how we will use it in a respectful manner that will continue to honor Oregon's land use laws, but yet provide a really good way for Monmouth to contribute more housing to the state's housing plans. And so I'm just really thankful for the two of them and to our state representative, Paul Evans, who took it forward. Deb Patterson signed on as a co-sponsor of it, our senator. And so now we have to do the hard work because we still have to go through annexation and zone changes and all of that. But to do that with a willing property owner.
Suzanne's so good, she's gonna have all that stuff done next week.
No pressure. No pressure.
Yeah, don't add anything else for a while. So thank you, Suzanne and Carter, too, because it's a huge accomplishment that Monmouth's bill signed by the governor today. So I don't know. We don't know if there was going to be a formal signing or something. So there is, but
yeah, it'll be in July, and they'll let us know when.
And I figured it must have been a slow day for her because she decided to sign it today without any of us knowing about it. So.
Can I say one thing? Yes. I appreciate Queen Rochelle, but really Suzanne did the majority of the work. I helped facilitate, I helped those types of things, but really Suzanne deserves the credit. I just want to make sure. It was, yeah. We coined it Team Monmouth, and so we did do that, but really without her expertise, I don't think we would have gotten as far as we did. So,
yeah. It was awesome. And I got to just go sit there and act like I was, the face of it. And I was not. So I'm just, anyways, it's super exciting to have been through the process and to know. And we also kind of assured the legislature that this is a pilot. If we can do this successfully, if this does meet the goals we set out, that it could be something they could consider in a wider context. Because really the biggest objection was we don't want a one-off. If we let Monmouth do it, everybody will want to do it. Well, if you let Monmouth do it and it works, then why wouldn't you let other people do it? So anyway, that was my other excitement for the week. And then I will take reports of boards and commissions, and we'll look through the applications we have for renewal. Boards Commission reports. Councilor McKeel and then Councilor Kerr.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have a Transportation Commission report from June 2nd. The commission talked about the transportation system plan that had been submitted now by the consultants, and the plan is now to have it go to the Planning Commission for them to review when they meet again in the fall, and then we'll eventually get it at City Council. Also, the Safe Routes to School work is now complete, and there was, Chief Haynes talked about that there have been accidents on Heffley and Main intersection where the sidewalk improvements with this latest Safe Routes to School work has been done. Those sidewalk improvements now we're expecting will make that a much safer intersection for folks. And the plan is to apply for another Safe Routes to School in the spring. We also had an update on the traffic problem that was on Gwynn Street, an intersection west of 99, that the drivers did not have very clear vision of oncoming traffic. So They made the no parking area on one side of the streets a little longer, and so now there's better visibility for drivers. So we're thinking that is going to also make another intersection safe. We also had a complaint from neighbors on Gentle Avenue in Catron about speeding drivers. And we had some traffic data that concurred that there was a problem there, and found out that there's really not clear signage about the speed limit. So they're going to be, the commission will be sending a request to City Council to add a 25-mile-an-hour speed sign. A fun project, Commissioner Bersani has been working with the Monmouth Elementary School on bike safety, and ODOT gave the city a grant through the Safe Routes to School program to bring a fleet of bikes and helmets that Cycle Oregon have. And so in the fall, the 3rd and 5th graded students will have a 2 to 3 week bike safety curriculum through their PE classes. And if they don't know how to ride a bike yet, they're going to get a lesson in that as well. And we're hoping, Commissioner Bersani is hoping to work with kindergarten through 2nd graders on the same bike safety issue later in that year. Okay, and then back to another problem. Neighbors sent, I should have changed this, so we ended with the kids at the end. But we had neighbors who were complaining about problems with drivers making rolling stops on Heffley and Bentley. And so we're actually, a member of the Transportation Commission is going to go out and capture some data watching drivers. I have made a stop at that stop sign ever since that meeting. So I'm good at this. But the police department is also going to start making additional stops, and just to make sure that we're not rolling through that stop sign. The next Transportation Commission meeting is September 8th at 7 p.m. at the police station or online. And just also the Historic Commission meeting is going to be next Tuesday, June 24th at 6 p.m. here in City Hall. So, and that's in person or online as well.
Thank you, Councilor Perry.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, the Planning Commission will meet tomorrow night, and they'll be reviewing this is sort of from our conversation earlier, they'll be reviewing a conditional use application for a daycare center to operate at Christ Church on the corner of Whitman and Clay. They determined the membership of the church, sought that out, knew that was a concern. It's an economic development thing for us. It speaks to number 21 or 21 of them. And in a way, and of course we don't know how there's a public hearing on it actually, and they'll probably move forward quickly after that. So that'd be great if we get that moving into that space. So that's the Planning Commission agenda for tomorrow night. Thank you.
And is that one now that would come to us potentially? Do you?
It is a level 3 decision, so level 3 issue, and so type 3, I guess it is. And so they'll make the final decision. So hopefully it'll move quickly.
Okay.
Is that right?
Good. All right. Woohoo. All right. Any other board commission meetings? Councilor Lopez and then Councilor Ridgway.
Very briefly, I was unable to attend the Mid-Willamette Valley Homeless Alliance board meeting last week. However, they are holding another meeting this month. They'll be holding their final budget meeting on June 30th. And so just goes to show you how wonderful our staff is, and the staff there is wonderful as well. But there are other entities that are going right up to the line with some of the budgetary items, trying to pass a final budget, and this is one of them.
And just very briefly for the Parks and Recreation Board, Tomorrow, we'll be, the board and myself will be able to tour some of the larger parks, Monmouth Recreation Park, Madrona, Main Street, and Gentle Woods. Yeah, park tour. I think it'll be a lot of fun. I don't go to the park often enough, but we'll get a chance to take a look at the condition of the park, see what modifications or improvements might be on tap for future, and I think it'll be nice to just put our heads together and try to find how to make the parks even more appealing and usable. So that's it.
Cool. All right. In your poor Pam, I just got another one. So you probably got lots of these, so I'll kind of break it up a little bit here. Hopefully you had an opportunity to review these. This is the time of year in which we have several of our fabulous volunteers whose terms are up and they have an opportunity to reapply. Again, our process is that the budget committee members and planning commission members, we will go through an interview process, so they are not included here for your approval tonight. And we need to get together and not so much budget, but for planning. And I will invite folks who are interested in conducting those meetings to let me know individually, and I will get those scheduled. But to start off, I will start with our Arts and Culture Commission, because Councilor Oberst has asked to be recused from making this decision. Although, as I pointed out, just because we're voting on a member of your household for a board or commission, there is no benefit or avoidance of financial detriment with regards to a board or commission appointment. And he doesn't literally have to do this, but he has chosen to not vote on this issue.
I just have this thing about we all got to watch appearances. So I'm appearing. My appearance is I'm not going to vote on my spouse's application to this board.
So I would like to, I'm asking for your approval to reappoint Sharon Oberst to the Arts and Culture Commission. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, seeing none opposed, and that will, we do have two folks who did not reapply, so we now have two openings on the Fun Arts and Culture Commission, so we're gonna have to look for some new folks for that. I mentioned that the Budget Committee, we will go through the application process for that, which brings us to the Historic Commission.
Mayor, may I ask a question? Will we go back through prior applicants who were unable to be on a board and commission, but now that there's openings, will we go back and look?
We'll probably put out the opening, and if they say I just applied and I'd be interested again, then we would do that. Yes. Historic Commission, we had 3 folks whose terms were up. We do have reappointment applications from Ron Woodruff and Bethany Dykstra, and in reviewing those, I would ask for recommendation. I would like to take a vote on reappointing Ron Woodruff and Bethany Dykstra to the Historic Commission. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none, that leaves us with one opening. Nita Wilson. Don't know if she just missed the reappointment. Suzanne may have to reach out to her. And the library board, there was one opening, and we still have a vacancy on that library board. The opening was for Carol Harding, who you spoke to us tonight as the chair, and she did reapply to continue her service, and I would like to ask your approval of Carol Harding's application. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, seeing none opposed, that brings us to Parks and Recreation. And we did have, again, this is sort of one of your late applications. We had 4 openings on Parks and Rec, Michael Jewell and Megan Youngs have indicated they would continue on in their roles, and I'd like to your approval of reappointing those two. All in favor?
Aye.
Because if any of you are opposed, you can certainly flag me down and state your opposition to these volunteers. But Planning Commission, we actually have 4 openings or terms that are up, and so we will try and get to those as soon as possible so that they can have a full commission in July, because that's coming right up. The Senior Advisory Board, we had 3 openings, although they also have 3 vacancies. Luckily, the 3 applicants, again, if you got your email today, all 3 of them, all 3 of them had already applied. So Melissa Cannon, Loretta Pecchioni, and Betty Sledge, which is interesting because I think those are our 3 non-residents on the Senior Advisory Board. All indicated their interest in continuing. So I, having worked with them, really appreciate their willingness to continue and ask for your approval of appointment of those 3. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And as I say, we still have
Madam Mayor, as the council liaison to that group, I would ask the rest of the council, if y'all know anybody who you think might make a good Senior Advisory Board member, that you could arm twist a little and see if you get them to apply for that, that would be appreciated, because we're down 3 and, we may lose somebody somewhere along the way. So just reality, please think about that. If you got anybody, send them along to see.
Yeah, thank you for that. Our Transportation Commission, we had 2 people whose terms were up. This is our smaller commission. They only have 5 members, so losing 2 of them would be tough. But both Linda Bersani and Kyle Janssen requested to continue, and obviously Linda's got plans. So I would ask your approval of their reappointment. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
So they're full up. And last is our Tree Advisory Board. And, we had done a great job of getting some interested and active folks on that. A majority of the board, 4 members, had their terms come up June 30th, and we got one of them to reapply. That again was in your packet. And the application is for Dan Hendrick. And I know we have Daniel Hendrick and Daniel R. Hendrick.
Father and son team.
And I'm not sure which one.
The senior is continuing. Junior has work conflicts now that he cannot make it. I would add that I think we have 2 folks interested in the 2 of those 3 vacancies. So I will be sending those your way too.
Excellent. I would recommend that we put Dan Hendrick Sr. back on the Tree Advisory Board. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 All right, that takes care of that group. And like I say, we'll get back to the Planning Commission folks as soon as possible, and then we'll continue to have consider others for the Budget Committee when it next convenes. All right, Michelle, City Manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd first like to point out that in the back of your packet, I included 2 letters from residents who were thanking our public works staff for 2 different incidents, and I wanted to make sure and highlight that. We hear a lot of times what we don't do right, so it's really nice when we hear what does get done right. I'm excited to announce Suzanne found out right before council meeting that she applied for a Travel Oregon grant for $49,000 to do an ADA accessibility audit for our businesses, and she has been awarded those funds. So we're very excited about that. Yeah. I wanted to touch base on the power outage yesterday. I don't know if you, on the Facebook post it mentioned, but I thought I'd kind of give you an update. Wade updated me earlier today. So basically, there's one area where we have all switches for all three phases of power, and there's a bar. A squirrel decided to stand on that bar, and the fire then caused it to arc to all three phases. And so, yeah, the actual incident was actually reported as a fire. It was that kind of a. It actually got yeah. So, unfortunately, he didn't make it. Yeah. But evidently, squirrels are like the biggest cause of power outages. I did not know that. So that's what occurred with that. In a prior council meeting, I had mentioned that we were working with the staff from Independence to work on the parade route issue of people putting chairs out and all of that. We met and we talked, and it became very apparent that we did not have enough time to adequately address the situation and do it in a way, because it is going to be a big deal. And so, and there's code implications that we need to take a look at. And so we decided not to try this year. We will reach out to the businesses that are having problems and try to work with them to try to mitigate any of that stuff. There was some ADA blockage and that type of thing, so we'll work on that. But we'll probably be bringing something back in a work session to the council, just because of the code amendment change that it would probably require for us to be able to do any kind of program where we remove stuff. The temporary occupancy certificate was granted for the transitional housing at 300 Stadium today. And so it's a 30-day and temporary, and so they started moving in today. So there's that. The pickleball tournament, we had originally scheduled it for June 27th. It has been rescheduled to July 11th. The contractor at the park is having some health issues, and so a little concern over getting all of that done. So there will be a tournament, and AJ Foscoli, who is the city manager of Falls City and an avid pickleball player, is helping with the tournament and is very excited about that. And he's also going to be doing probably a training session so that he can teach people how to play pickleball during the tournament. So if you're interested, please come to that. I also wanted to update you on our city recorder. Phyllis started back yesterday part-time. Yeah, so she's back. She's taking it easy. We're going to see how this goes, but she's working 4 hours a day, and we talked about night meetings and her possible return in July. So that's kind of where things are. We've got to see where she goes. So anyway, so it's great to have her back. Just a reminder, Juneteenth is Thursday. Is Thursday night from 5:30 to 8 at the Main Street Amphitheater. And then just to remind you again that I will be on vacation starting tomorrow through Monday, and then I'll be back in office on the 24th. I'm going camping at the beach, but I've confirmed I have Wi-Fi, so I'm just gonna.
Take a break.
No, I will. But if I were going to be out of pocket, then I would need to establish someone else be city manager in my place. And so I feel because I have signal, I can be communicated with, that I don't need to actually do that. So that's all there is. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And that's all I have.
So I'd like to let everyone know, as my first council comment, that part of the reason Michelle is taking this time off to go celebrate her birthday. Happy birthday! All right, other council comments or announcements?
Reminder, Sunday at 1 in the park is the Steel Drum Orchestra. And I think that might be a real interesting show. I plan on being there.
Will we get a updated write-up about the pickleball tournament? Because I sent that out in my neighborhood and there were people very excited, so. But we're not going to have scratch and sniff pickle scented stickers, right?
I drove by the pickleball courts today and there was 15, 20 little kids with adults. And I don't know exactly what was going on, but I'm guessing they just had a big fun time just all back and forth. It is fun. I've been going out with my son on Monday mornings, and I'm not mobile anymore. Very mobile. I'm not quick, but I got arm reach. That's right, John. So, but it's just fun. It's a good time. So, we don't have long rallies, but we have a good time for an hour. So, I recommend it highly.
Any other comments or announcements? Carol McKeel.
Tickler for Juneteenth on Thursday. We're going to have free pork sliders. Nikita is going to cook her famous pulled pork. So there'll be like really good sandwiches, but they'll be small. So you want to save room for the Brill's barbecue. And my husband does not like brisket, and he ate the whole piece that I was supposed to eat. So the really great barbecue, and we'll also have Sanchez pizza. So, and cotton candy and a popcorn machine and line dancing, and it's just going to be. We're just blowing it off the roof here. So it should be a lot of fun.
When and where, Carol? When and where?
It's this Thursday, 5:30 to 8 at the amphitheater. And we have a nationally known DJ. This guy goes on tour, and we have him because Nikita secured him for us. So we are hitting the big time. Salem didn't get them, we did.
All right. Seeing no other announcements, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, aye. All right. Thanks, everybody.
This conference is no longer being recorded.